Hello and welcome back to the Start a Glamping Business podcast from Glampitect North America. Today I'm joined by Alex Burkett, who is the CEO of Outdoor Alliances. We have literally just recorded a podcast for his podcast where we talked all about the glamping industry and how you can get into it. So make sure to check that out. And in the introduction for his podcast, Alex gave a fantastically smooth and eloquent introduction for Glampitect North America, and I cannot hope to repeat the same feat for his business. So Alex, I'm going to give you the floor to introduce Outdoor Alliances and then just introduce yourself and your backstory and tell us how you got into the outdoor hospitality business.
Well, first off, Nick, thanks again for having me here. And thanks again, as you mentioned, for recording on my podcast as well. It was a pleasure having you on to talk about that. My story into the outdoor industry is a little bit of a weird story, I guess, in a sense. So I got my start about 5 or 6 years ago working for an individual campground at the park level. So doing everything from answering the phone and customer service to eventually working my way up through that business and becoming a manager there, and eventually ran operations and sales for them, and finally took over their marketing in the last couple of years that I had worked for that park. It was something I was really just kind of thrown into, and it wasn't anything that I had any prior experience or background before. And I really started learning marketing from the ground up, and liked the creative side of things and being able to combine that with some of the analytics and really start to learn what makes a good marketing campaign and how to be successful in that. Eventually got really good to the point where the 2 years that I did do marketing for that park, we ended up hitting our maximum revenue projections that we had for both of those years, and just shattering those and doing some great business. So had the privilege to learn at that park. And then sort of in the middle of COVID, everything changed, as it probably did for a lot of people. And I had friends and connections and people in the industry that I had known reach out to me and say, hey, I need help. The traditional way of marketing that we had done before wasn't working for them, whether it was, meeting their customers and talking face to face, or doing print marketing, or whatever they were doing. It just wasn't going as well as it could be. And so that's when, I started sort of unofficially advising them on what to do and how to move more digital. It wasn't a client relationship, and I certainly wouldn't have called it a business at that point. It was really just getting my feet wet in other parks and saying, can I replicate the success that I had before at this one park location to other campgrounds and friends that I knew from across the country. About a year or so later is when I sort of launched Outdoor Alliances and began helping all sorts of different parks and locations with all their marketing services. So we really try and be that turnkey service where we can offer a full list of solutions.
And I'm interested by the way you started your story there, how you started just working for a campground and doing a variety of different roles. That's kind of similar to my start with Glampitect, in that, I was wearing lots of hats. I started off as one thing, and then, as time goes on, you take on more responsibilities, kind of flip between different departments. And I learned a hell of a lot I got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge about different things in the glamping, setup process. So I imagine it was similar for you, wearing lots of different hats, experiencing different departments, speaking to different people. And I'm just interested, was that your experience, and did you take a lot from that process of, just as I say, wearing so many different hats?
Absolutely. And, when I first got started, I really was interested in the customer service side of things. I am a people person and like to talk to people and develop those relationships. And that's part of why I like what I do now, because even if I get to do marketing every day, I still get the chance to, call the clients and people that I work with, and have those conversations and understand what's working in their business. How can we better serve their customers? And so it really was about that in the beginning. And I actually really didn't even like the outdoors that much. And that might surprise a lot of people or shock a lot of people, considering I'm now in a career where I work with outdoor businesses. But it wasn't something that I got into for the love of camping initially. And it really was that learning curve and experience as I worked with the owners at that park, and they began to see things in me that I don't think that I saw initially, and said, hey, we think you would be good in this role. Can you oversee the entire operations for the park, support the GM there that was working at the time? And I was, kind of overwhelmed at first, especially as more stuff came. But that really allowed me to open up and, experience new things and try them and be open to that and really develop those skills. And if I wouldn't have been pushed into that and, tried marketing for the first time and really understood, how do you make a great website, or how do you develop a great social media campaign, I don't know that I ever would have found out that I was a good marketer, or that I even liked doing marketing for campgrounds. So that part of being uncomfortable and being open to trying new things and getting a chance to work at all those different positions was a really valuable experience.
Yeah, and you started off kind of informally, you said there, advising people on the marketing side of things. At what point did you decide to take the leap and turn that into a full-time, hopefully revenue generating business?
So I think for me, that came when I finally felt confident in the service that I was delivering, and I knew that I could replicate it for other park locations. The park that I was, operating at when I first started out was just one single location in Ohio, and it sort of is a Midwest park. It's got a different dynamic than other parks across the country, depending on what the clientele is. Is it a year-round park? Is it a transient park? What type of business is it? And I think getting to work with them and understanding that I could do it and that I could produce the results that, people actually would pay for is when I decided to make the push and say, hey, people will pay me for this. I've got a real skill here that I think is missing in the industry. And that's really the whole reason I started it too. There are obviously other people in the outdoor industry that do marketing for campgrounds, but I really saw a need to educate and be able to produce some of the things that I know work and that would separate me from them. And so I think it was that transition that was key to me to understand that I have a skill set and I have something that can help a lot of people and a lot of people in this industry.
Yeah, and now you are now a full-blown professional business who specializes in the marketing of outdoor resorts. So what exactly do you offer as a service to these kind of campground owners, glamping site owners, RV park owners? What exactly do you offer and how do you help them?
So we've got a full range of services. And as you mentioned, we work with, not just campgrounds, but a lot of different businesses in the outdoor industry. So whether it's a campground, an RV park, more of a luxury resort, glamping is definitely something that we're interested in as well and trying to get more into. In fact, several parks we work with have glamping accommodations. They just might not be a full-blown glamping park. I mean, I can think of one right now that has 15 glamping tents and they're able to charge hundreds of dollars per night. And it's one of their fastest growing and best generating revenue streams for them. And it's something that, we market for them, those accommodations, and they perform extremely well. So the full range of services that we offer really is almost limitless. We can do everything from website design, developing social media campaigns, running online advertisements, doing graphic design and logo work, and then even other services that we partner with some people in the industry that we're good friends with and know to do things like mobile app design, which is something that's become sort of a good customer engagement piece and marketing piece to get people into your park, or 360 tours. I've got great connections with TJ Ammond at Campsite 360, Joe Jumig at My Community. And, that's why I say that we can do really that limitless breadth of almost anything marketing wise, we either do in-house or can partner with somebody who can do it better than we can.
Yeah, and we were discussing in my appearance on your podcast the importance of good partners, and if we can't do something, then we know people who can, and I think that's a really valuable aspect of being a business owner in this space, and it really adds something to the clients. Let's give you a challenge then. Let's say I'm the owner of a glamp ground. We've got 20 yurts. We're in, I don't know, Michigan, and we want someone, I'm not very good with computers. I don't know about marketing. I want someone like you to come in and help us with our marketing and really bring in guests to get us off the ground. So what would you do?
So I think the strategy really depends on, looking at whether this is a new park location that we're talking about who is building these things from scratch and doesn't have an existing brand in place, or they have an existing brand and they're looking to add these units. So I guess I'll piece it from both sides and give more of a complete answer. Depending on who might be listening, different aspects might apply to different people. So let's talk about first, if they're a new park owner or there's somebody who's trying to develop this, maybe they purchased the land, maybe they're starting to work with somebody like you guys to do the feasibility study and understand what that looks like, and you're ready to move on to that next step. Connect with people who can build it and put that into place. The first thing that I would recommend is to create a logo and a brand. That's really where all good marketing campaigns, in my opinion, start from that foundation. It's anything from developing what that logo or icon looks like, what are your color choices, any messaging that you're looking to push, and getting that in place first. I mean, when you think about your logo, it's something that's going to be on all of your signage, on every other piece of marketing that we're going to be putting out there. We're going to start from that foundation. And those elements combined can often help inform us on what the other things that we're going to do will look like. Along with a logo, I would also recommend creating what's called a buyer persona, which essentially is just looking at, that's a fancy way of saying, just identify who are the people that are going to be staying in these glamping tents. Is it people that are traveling who are going to come for 1 or 2 nights and then leave? Are these people coming from the cities that are going to come for a destination park like yours, who are looking to relax for a weekend or a week? That's going to depend a lot about what type of marketing we're going to be putting out there. And really, you want to capture that in the logo and the messaging and the things that you're putting out there. So I would start with that first. Once we get past that, and let's say you've got an existing logo and a brand set up already, you may still need to refine that messaging and that buyer persona, but at least you've got a foundation to start from. Next thing I would suggest is you've got to make sure that we can get one traffic channel really dialed in to bring in more customers. And I would really recommend starting with one. Some people would recommend starting with a lot of different things and trying to get a website up and running and your social media and online advertising and an email campaign and trying to get everything rolling at once. I would sort of reverse that and say, let's get started with one traffic channel that really works, that we can depend on, that you can bring people into your world, so to speak. They can give you information or you can get them to book, and we can get that consistent first before we try launching something else. So for us, that typically looks like web and developing a really great website right away that you're able to bring in that traffic and collect information. So even if it's a really simple website where you use a website builder like GoDaddy or partner with an agency like ours to get something running, where you might offer pictures and updates of the glamping units as they're going up, sort of the progress along the way, and collecting people's information right from the beginning. So you want to make sure that you're building that database and you've got that information to be able to go back when it's time to start selling, or when it's time, to collect the reservations and reach out to those people. So that's really the foundational steps that I would recommend if they're a new glamping park owner and looking to get started. I was really focused on what's the logo and the branding look like, dial up one traffic channel first, and then begin to build other pieces on top of that.
I'd really echo that comment as well about marketing before you actually open your doors. My business partner, Callum, he started his own glamping business back in 2018. He's got 2 sites of his own in the UK already, and he's got more in the pipeline. And the big factor to his initial success for his first site was he started marketing months and months before he opened his doors. He was updating on Instagram, what color kettle should I get for each glamping pod? What should this look like? What should that look like? And it's really gathering an audience who sort of felt a sense of loyalty as well, because they're contributing to the decisions that were being made in the start of this glamping business. And it allowed him to take bookings before he even opened his site. So people were booking a month or 2 in advance, and that gave them a little bit of extra cash to sort of finish the job as well. And it just led to a really strong occupancy rate from day one. I think there were 70 or 80% in the first few months straight away, which is pretty good for a new glamping business. And so do not be afraid to start your marketing before you open your doors. 100%.
Exactly. And people often forget about that, and that it can be an engaging customer experience even along the way. You might look at a pile of dirt on the ground that went from a flat piece of nothing to building up your pads, or actually installing concrete footings to put the glamping accommodations in. But people see that as progress, and they're going to get excited along the way. So even the smallest things that you can do and share on there, you can really engage your customers. And to that point further with the web stuff, a lot of this work takes time, especially if you're working with an agency who's going to really work hard to drive that traffic from the beginning and make sure that you can get those advanced reservations. I mean, SEO can take between 30 and 90 days, if not longer, sometimes for competitive keywords to get up and running. So if we're just starting to do that sort of work and look at how do we create a website that works with your reservation system, that is mobile friendly, that's well designed, that your customers can actually use, and put all that up and running, if we start when you open, you might not see any great return on that until 30, 60, 90 days from now. So getting that foundation up and running from the beginning, is key to success in a lot of ways, so that you've already got momentum going into your opening day.
Absolutely, yeah. And when we talk about marketing, I imagine one thing that will come to mind is social media, and 2 things that will come to mind off the back of that is Facebook and Instagram. So could you tell us a little bit more about how those 2 channels differ when it comes to starting a glamping business, maybe which channels people should prioritize early on, and how to make the most of those channels?
Absolutely. It's a question I got asked a lot, because there's a lot of different social media platforms, and those 2 are some of the largest and most prominent today when we talk about consumers and where they're going and where the attention is. They both are similar in a lot of aspects, but have a lot of differences. It will work well for almost any type of business, including accommodations, campgrounds, RV parks, but the differences do vary. You really want to look at first, where is your audience on, and really identifying, going back to that buyer persona piece, who those people are. If you're trying to serve a younger crowd, you may want to lean towards Instagram or something that's more visual. The other thing that I would recommend is look at what your strength is. Are you somebody who is really into taking great photography and being able to put that up on Instagram stories, for instance, which are quick snapshots, and being able to provide that day by day or week by week? Or are you somebody who might post less frequently, but you like to write a lot? And so a good paragraph with a good image might work better on Facebook. So sometimes it can be about, understanding where your customer is and getting started, and then understanding where you're best at creating content. I would recommend early on for any business, no matter what it is, to look at registering your accounts on just about every platform that you want to be on, whether that's a domain name, your Instagram account, your Facebook account, and just getting that locked up. And even if you don't get started right away on those things and really putting your full attention and focus on that, you want to make sure you've got those assets already ready to go, so that when you do launch and maybe work with a marketing person on your staff or work with an agency, we don't have to scramble and look at registering that before somebody else. So I would say Instagram is probably going to lean better towards the younger crowd, somebody who's more interested in visuals, but a lot of travel and accommodations perform really well on Instagram, especially if you're using the newest tools and features like Reels and Stories and understanding where the attention is on that platform. Facebook is traditionally the sort of go-to platform for just about any business and anyone in the outdoor industry. You'll typically find your audience on there. You just got to look at, where are people actually converting? Where do I think I can build that audience and that channel up? And where do I feel most comfortable creating that content? Because that can sometimes be a lot of the battle, is figuring out how often to post, what time and energy is required to post those things on social media. And it can be a lot for an owner who's balancing everything else when they're looking to open or operate their park.
Yeah, and you mentioned there very briefly Reels when we're talking about Instagram. Now, this is something, there's been a huge move in the last year or two towards short form video. And when we say short form, we mean 5, 10, 15, 30-second video, as opposed to, your 10-minute YouTube videos. It's something that I'm 22 years old and I'm struggling to get my head around it. So how a 40 or 50, 60-year-old park owner will, maybe I'm being ageist here, will get their head around it, I don't know. So could you explain to us a little bit more about that short form video phenomenon, where you can find it? Obviously you've got Instagram and TikTok, and how site owners and park owners can make use of these short form platforms to really market their site and reach new audiences.
Absolutely. So this is, again, something that Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, as you mentioned, are really pushing. And it's really where they're trying to direct our attention to. It's become so big that on a lot of these platforms, they have their own section, or like TikTok, it's the entire point of the platform is to create and get people to consume these shorter form videos. These things are traditionally something that may be a little bit harder to understand at first, because of the sort of day-to-day trendiness of things on there, and the way that you have to interact with the trends, viral music, using hashtags. And there's a lot of good practices that are involved in that. We've written a couple pieces about Instagram, but the Instagram Reels piece is definitely something that's been on my mind for a while, that we need to do a better job of covering and educating more people on, because this really is the place where you can go viral. And when I mean viral, I mean mega viral in a lot of cases, where you might be an individual park owner nowhere near a destination town or nowhere near, anything that's a major attraction. And you might post a really good reel. And if it gets in front of the right people and people push that content and share it and like it and engage with that post, it could reach thousands and thousands or millions of people in some cases. I mean, we've had success with some of our parks on TikTok, where several videos reached almost 1 million views. I mean, it's not because we're the best at creating that, but we understand the trends. Mm-hmm. We understand what'll make people engage with those things and begin to share. So I would say, like almost anything else, if you're looking to take this challenge on your own, do some research first and understand what people are doing to be successful on there, and understand what people are producing. I would create an account on the platforms that you're looking to create these short form videos on. So whether it is the Facebook and Instagram, like we talked about earlier, or if you have somebody that's on TikTok or you're already on there, just consume content first. I would consume for about an hour, 2 hours a day, until I really understand and feel comfortable with what people are doing. Why are people doing the things that they're doing? And then putting that plan together to say, how can my park and what I'm doing fit into those trends? You don't have to copy necessarily everything that's happening. You want to make it your own, highlight what you're doing with your accommodations. And with a lot of these pieces, especially when we talk about glamping, it's so visual and it's such an experience in a lot of cases that these things will perform really, really well because they're unique. They're things people don't see every day. And a lot of people can have some really great success if they use short form video and reels.
Yeah, and short form video and reels, they are such a great way of capturing an audience, but far more important is actually converting that audience into paying customers, right? And, you know, as far as I'm aware, you can't book a stay directly on TikTok just yet. I'm sure you will be able to at some point, but to get money from that audience, you'll have to either have your own website where you can book online from that website, or list your park or your site on Airbnb, booking.com, Expedia, all those sort of online travel agencies. Now, there's quite a big debate on this in the industry, and I know one guy, Mark from Boostly, I don't know if you're aware of, he's like an Airbnb guru whose whole stick is book direct as opposed to giving all your money to Airbnb, and I agree on a lot of his points because it puts you in control. But I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit more on the difference between converting on your own website and converting on Airbnb and other online travel agencies, and which you should be focusing your time and your money on.
Yeah, so I think, as you alluded to, this is a really complex and complicated debate a lot of times as to which direction might be best for different parks and different stages of the game. So my sort of thoughts and way that I look at this really, again, depends on what type of park you are and what stage of the game you're at. Traditionally, if you're an early park owner or you're somebody who's quite young into the game, I would actually recommend listing your accommodations on some of these OTAs and other travel sites that may not be direct booking through your website or through social media. The way that I look at this is you're exposing your inventory and what you have available on more platforms and making it more available. Early on, you probably don't have a big audience yet, and you probably aren't driving enough people to your website organically, and you probably haven't dialed up that one traffic channel yet. If you have, then we can skip to the later part of this where I'll talk about not recommending it. But if you're still looking to increase the amount of traffic and getting people just familiar with your brand and your park, having your inventory exposed on more places can be beneficial, especially early on when using a site like Airbnb. You're not having to pay up front for that traffic that's being driven to your listing. You're only paying that company if they convert and if they bring you new business. So it's really a win-win situation where it's there. If they happen to bring you a new customer, you're able to still get that booking. Maybe you have to pay them a little bit, but I'd rather have that booking and that customer in the door where I can capture their information, get their email, their phone number, information about them, to where next time they want to book, or if I want to encourage them to come back and stay with me again, then I would encourage them to go direct through my website. And you can use different ways to sort of market to them and make sure that they're directly booking through you. If you're an established park and you're somebody who has your brand out there, I would recommend trying to drive as much traffic as possible back to your website and doing things that you can to sort of outrank your competition and get them to actually come and book direct with you. You're always going to be able to control your customer better, their experience, and begin to put different elements in place with a campaign to be more successful. So that's really where we get into sort of an advanced strategy and talk more about how do we combine everything from a website to our social media campaign, an email campaign, online advertising, if we have that going, and make sure everything's seamlessly working together to drive people back to our website, ultimately to our booking site, and converting and getting those reservations.
Absolutely, and I think so far you're someone who's clearly extremely adept at driving traffic and driving revenue for park operators and glamping site owners and things like that. So I'd love to know what's the one marketing tactic you've used, or the one campaign that you're proudest of in your time doing this kind of thing that has generated a lot of revenue for your clients?
Yeah, so I'll point back to one example from when I worked at my initial park doing the marketing there, and where I was sort of first learning and testing things out. Early on, we decided to, or not early on, later in the game, we decided to launch and create a TikTok page. It was something that was new. This is actually a Jellystone Park location that I worked at. So there was a lot of push from the corporate office at the time to get franchisees on to TikTok to create content. If you know anything about Jellystone Park, there's often the Yogi Bear characters, and it's very much like a Disney-esque camping experience where We're catering to families. It's very fun. There's a lot of activities happening, and it's a very, easier experience to sell. But on TikTok, we had the ability to create a campaign and create some of these videos in place that, like I talked about earlier, hit 500,000 or 1 million views. And we were actually able to track those analytics and find out that even with just our website link in our profile on TikTok, not a direct booking link on that post or anything like that, from those videos that ended up going viral and that ended up doing well, we were able to track that visitor who clicked on that website. We were able to drive almost 3,000 visits back to our website and over 700 new reservations just from one viral TikTok video that took, maybe a half hour worth of planning, shooting, editing, and putting out there. So I would say, don't knock the newer platforms or platforms that aren't necessarily optimized for conversions or for booking right away. Because like I said, if you do the research, you learn about it, you understand what's happening, you really can get new reservations from a platform like that. And I think that's something that we're most proud of, looking at, being able to generate, call it $75,000 of new reservations and new money coming into the business just based on one viral video. Yeah. So don't knock it until you try it.
And that really backs up what we were saying earlier about the potential value of short form video. And I didn't expect this to be the key thing that came out of today, but I think it really does show just how valuable investing time learning about TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts can be for your business, and how much money they can generate directly. And I think what's really important to stress about it is that you will never get an Instagram post that gets random. Let's say you've got 10,000 followers from your glamping site. You'll never get a random Instagram post from your audience resulting in 1 million views. Unless it's some kind of like ridiculous competition, you'll never just get a random picture of your site getting 1 million views. Whereas if you do it right with a TikTok or an Instagram Reel, the way those algorithms are set up, they can just explode and just get in front of so many eyeballs. And as you say, if you've got your channel set up properly, people can see where they can book, and it results in your case $70,000 off half an hour's work, which is just crazy. I think really want to emphasize just how valuable those channels can be, as you've just said there.
I mean, exactly. And it's where the attention is right now. It's where social media platforms are trying to push us and trying to push people on where to go and where they want that attention at. I would say, as a caveat to this, don't expect, if you register a TikTok account and create something, that right away you're going to get $70,000 worth of value back in return. This was, obviously a well-established business, and the Jellystone brand is very well known. So there were other factors, of course, that were helping with the success of this. But just getting on there and doing the research, consuming the content, and just trying. Don't be fearful of not understanding the trends and understanding what's going on, and that's prohibiting you from posting the video. You're only going to get better by creating more, developing that audience, and continuing to research and consume more. So as you become more involved with these platforms, if you're an owner or a manager or an operator who wants to take this on yourself, if you want to get good at something like this and you see the potential, it's just good old-fashioned time and hard work and understanding what's going to perform well and what's going to do well in the end.
Okay, Alex. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you to learn more about creating short form video for their, whether it's new or prospective outdoor hospitality resort, or if they want any help on any kind of marketing whatsoever, how would they get in touch with you?
So best way to contact me is my email. So it's alex@outdooralliances.com, or you can always visit our website, outdooralliances.com. Just remember to put the S on that. If you don't, you're going to go somewhere else that's not associated with us. And happy to always reach out. And even if you're a new park owner who might not have the budget yet for an agency or somebody that can help work with you, just getting that advice and helping you get started on the right track, I'm always happy to jump on a call and help set you up for success moving forward.
Fantastic. I appreciate your time. And yeah, hopefully people can get in touch and get help with their marketing side of their glamping businesses.
Thanks again, Nick. Happy to be here.